There are some stories that you hear and some stories that you feel. This is one that you will feel. My guest today is Louize Yafai, a trusted and accredited emotional recovery and resilience coach with a global practice that helps individuals, athletes, and organizations navigate life's toughest transitions. A major part of her practice involves helping people rebuild their lives after deep emotional and psychological trauma. She also works with organizations to expose the hidden cost of personal struggle, how pain at home quietly affects what happens at work. In our conversation, Louize explains how a single shift in language can change recovery, why self-compassion is real strength, and how small actions can rebuild confidence layer by layer. Her honesty is raw, her insights are profound, and this conversation is one that will stay with you forever. And with that said, let's begin. Let's just start off by talking about the clients that you work with.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, the clients I work with, they're men and women. I also work with organizations as well, with their hidden silent struggles that their workforce bring into work. They don't just stay at home. But let's talk about the men and women that I speak to. They are, if you can imagine, they are going through divorce, intimate partner violence, or domestic abuse, as we call it, co-parenting battles, toxic relationships, loss of identity, and burnout. And there's no one size fits all, but what I do is I fast track their emotions. So they've been kind of stuck in limbo for months, if not years. So my job is to help them get clarity on their emotions, to really shift their focus from the negative and to move them forward positively. And they've got so many negative emotions that I dial down those negative emotions that they have. And as I say to them, the brain and your mind is so powerful. So feed it with as much goodness as you can. And for every negative that you think of each day or you feel, try and spin that with 3 things that you're grateful for. And I understand that this takes practice. It's not an overnight thing. But also, you have to be kind to yourself. You have to remember that what you're going through isn't permanent. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but my clients just need help navigating to get them to the better place where they want to go. And that's what I work with my clients. So for organizations feel as if they've got their well-being policies in place, their EAPs, which is an employee assistance program, and other well-being policies that they have in place. But personal struggles don't just stay at home. They walk straight into work, which obviously has a negative effect.
Right. And it's a negative effect that I think is pretty profound, not only for the work. We often just focus on the work, but for the person who's doing the work, the people who are working with the person who's struggling too. And so we have to really take the time to dig into this and figure out how we can truly offer the true assistance that gets people through this. And one of the things, Louize, that you mentioned that's really interesting is that you said, I believe it was fast tracking emotions.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that means?
Sure, of course. Fast tracking emotions is it's different to counseling, because counseling and therapists generally they go back from childhood or from growing up. So although I hear what's bothering them within my first session, it's kind of after that I would give them a type of action plan to keep them moving forward. I don't let my clients stay in the negative because they've been there for far too long. And my job is to get them out of that feeling and really to see light at the end of the tunnel. And, I always say people that are stuck in those black holes, you can either look at it like that, or as I say to my clients, this is a regrowth for you. You can rediscover yourself. You can build on what your setback is, because guaranteed in life, any setback that you have will be your strength in the future, and that will be your superpower. So I say, look at it like a blank canvas. How much color do you want to put on that? And let's start. Where do you want to be in 6 months? How about next year? What is your goal? We understand what has happened isn't good, and it's upsetting and it's painful. And I get that. But that if you carry on with that baggage, you're not going to be able to move forward positively. And that's my job, to fast track those emotions that they're literally stuck in.
Yes. Oh, this is great because a couple of things that I love about this, because you're not saying I'm denying the emotions. We're not pretending like they're not there. We're acknowledging that they're there. We're acknowledging the difficulty and the pain that's real, while at the same time recognizing that we need to move forward and go places. Because I think a lot of times, whether it's with a therapist or with a well-meaning friend, what ends up happening is co-rumination that keeps you stuck in the same place, where you just recycle and repeat and practice the same patterns of negative thinking in a way that keeps you stuck. Because rumination is just overthinking, cycling through the same thoughts, but we don't think about co-rumination, when we bring somebody else into that exact same cycle, and then they just keep you stuck in that way. And so focusing on that future, that's really profound. And the other thing too is that you're giving them a very positive, powerful narrative. I think about this almost like in terms of like the placebo effect. It's like a positive placebo. Whatever you believe is true. So if you believe this is the worst thing in my life and I will never recover from that, then that will be true. But if you believe that this will be a difficulty that you will use to be a catalyst and a catapult to something better, more resilience, more strength, greater learnings, then that will be true. And I love that you are moving them forward while not denying the emotionality, and then giving them a positive story that they can latch onto and utilize for growth.
This is the thing. And I know you just mentioned the word stuck. And when my clients come to me and they say, I'm stuck, I just can't move forward, I kind of flip that word stuck and I say, well, no, you're not stuck. You're in limbo. And there's a difference, because being in limbo, you're just thinking, where am I going to be? You're just kind of waiting. What avenue am I going to go to? And when they think of just that word change from stuck to limbo, it's like,
Wow.
oh, okay, I'm figuring this out. I know where I want to go. I want to do this. I want to do that. Yes, it's unfortunate, and it takes courage and, kind of empowering them to take back their power, to take back their responsibility, and actually know that there's only me now. I'm responsible for my life, for my happiness, for my children's lives. And once you hit rock bottom, there's always that kind of moment, that pivotal moment where you think, right, I'm changing this now. This is it. I'm going to start. And they start putting plans in place to do what they want to do. Just, small wins, little things, nothing huge or major. But I always say to them, celebrate the small wins. Remember where you were to where you are now. And that in itself is like, oh, it's a light bulb moment. Wow, I have come so far. So we build on that, and they have strength. It's just, showing them and letting them know you've got that inner strength there. And I mean, the difference, Kwame, in one session is amazing. And it takes 3 to 5 sessions and they are good to go. They're feeling better. They're feeling positive, and they're ready to take on what challenges comes their way.
Yes. Oh, there's so much to explore here, Louise. So let's start off with the power of words when it comes to self-talk, our inner negotiations. Because again, that brilliant shift from I'm stuck to I'm in limbo. I mean, it has a very palpable feeling attached to it. When you're stuck, it's not just that you're in place and something's holding you back. And maybe this is just me, I think about it almost like quicksand. It's also gross. Like you're stuck in tar and it's just all over you. Just gross, right? And I think when you're in limbo, you are free to do whatever you want. You have now choices. Nothing is holding you back. And it makes me wonder, because this is incredibly powerful. Are there any other um examples of powerful word choice when it comes to our self-talk that you've seen with your clients that have helped to lead toward breakthrough?
Um, a lot of my clients, when they come forward, they're just very negative. They've got so many limiting beliefs that I'm not going to be loved. I'm not going to be able to raise my children. I'm not going to, and it's always, I'm not able to, and no one will love me, and I've got no confidence, and their self-esteem is so low. But once I start to kind of deep dive a little bit more, it's kind of letting them know that action comes before confidence. So again, it's kind of, well, how about if you do, some people, they've got no confidence, but they want to date again. So it's kind of like, well, how about if you write a profile for yourself? And it's like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't. And it's like, okay, well, if you're not happy and you're not comfortable doing that, and then by the end of the call, because I work globally as well, so by the end of the call, that actually I am going to write my profile. And the following week, and then the next week when I do get to see them again, they're so excited and empowered and in control, because even writing their profile on a dating app is, I'm successful. I have 3 children. I do this, I do that. So that in itself is giving them confidence that they forget they have. But when they're actually writing it out or writing in a journal, again, you're feeding your mind with, this is me. Actually, I am a good catch. I am good. I might have had and suffered from X, Y, and Z, but I've still got these qualities. I've still got a heart of gold. I've still got a lot of love to give.
And Louise, what I'm realizing here is that your coaching is very action oriented. Again, kind of going back to what I said about rumination and co-rumination, we get stuck in the feels and just stay there. But you're saying, okay, feel. You're human. Let's not deny that. Feel that. And at the same time, let's take action. Are you willing to do this? This is almost like a negotiation with your clients. No, I can't do that. Okay, well, what are you willing to do? You're going to
Yeah.
leave here doing something,
Yeah.
right? And so you
Yeah.
figure out what that thing is, and then you start to build. But the thing that I love about this is that you're reminding people to celebrate the wins. And this is something that I realized with a lot of high performers. We almost think that negativity is the core driver for our success. I need to feel bad in order to do good, essentially. And that's what they're feeling. Okay, if I accept that I'm doing well, then do I lose my motivation to do better? And I think about it in my personal life in terms of, am I running off of dirty energy or clean energy? Am I powering myself in a way that pollutes my body, or am I powering myself in a way that is renewable and clean? And when you can actually just say, actually, no, I did something that makes me feel good, and now I want to do more things. That action is what leads to confidence, and then that confidence leads to more action, and then it just keeps on cycling toward the positive.
This is the thing. And as I say to clients and as I say to companies that I go to, action builds confidence. Confidence builds resilience, and resilience will strengthen both your people and your organization. So it's kind of these little steps, and they're little mantras to kind of have in place. And it's once you start feeding yourself with good thoughts and good energy, you'll be doing that constantly. And I'm not saying it's an overnight thing. You can do it overnight. It takes practice, and it takes courage, and it takes strength, and it takes time, but guaranteed you will get there. And I also, when I go to companies as well, and I talk to leaders, and leaders, I often say they're always the last one to leave. They leave, they go home, they work from home, they're back in again at 6 o'clock the next morning. But it's kind of unsustainable. And because of their ESG commitments, it's kind of they're modeling unsustainable behavior at the top,
Right.
which cascades down. And eventually that's just going to lead to employees in overwork and burnout. And then, of course, it's not aligning with their ESG commitments, because my work kind of ties in with the social pillar and the governance pillar. So the social pillar is, for ESG, basically is environmental, social, and governance, for anyone listening thinking, what is she on about? So in simple terms, it's how companies prove that they care for the planet, their people, and how the company is run. So my work ties into the social pillar and the governance pillar also. And it's how companies treat their staff and their well-being, and, how they're creating a culture of inclusion. But also the governance side, it's about their leadership, their responsibility, risk management, ethical culture. So with clients, and I'm the human eyes and ears for employees that don't talk to their workplace about their struggles at home. So with that emotional strain that goes on behind closed doors at home, it walks straight into a workplace. And that emotional strain leads to absenteeism, staff churn, presenteeism, resignations, mistakes, accidents, that kind of thing. So my work with organizations, because I go and talk to organizations, and we restructure policies and surveys that they send out to their teams. And with the eyes and ears behind that, I hear all about the silent, hidden relationship struggles that your workforce don't take to you. So I guess I'm bridging the gap between policy, performance, and people, and it's to support the most overlooked but essential parts of ESG, which is the social and governance parts.
It's deep. It's deep,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we can recognize in our personal lives how important our relationships are. I mean, the quality of our life will depend significantly, almost predominantly, on the quality of our relationships. And if the quality of our relationships are diminished for whatever reason, then that's going to have an impact on our workplace. So no matter what you believe or want to believe about this, as cold and callous as you want to be in business, you have to recognize that the relationship quality of your employees is going to have a palpable impact on the success of the business. And so for leaders, when they are considering this, how should they approach this? Because it's a tricky situation. You don't want to cross any lines and go to somebody's room and say, "Hey, how's your relationship going? You seem a little bit off." That's probably in many places illegal.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you as a leader how can you be empathetic without crossing any of these lines?
Yeah, yeah. And this is the thing. There's a lot of leaders that kind of are unprepared when and if an employee actually comes forward to say, I'm suffering abuse at home, a toxic relationship, co-parenting battles or divorce, whatever. So it takes so much courage and inner strength for an employee to actually open up. So depending on how their leader or their boss or HR deal with that person, whether how they signpost them, how they talk to them, how they follow up with them, will then depend whether that employee either goes back and continues to suffer in silence, or feels lighter coming into work knowing her boss now knows, or his boss now knows, that they're suffering and the communication channels are open. And there's a bit of flexibility as well. I have a court hearing, or I have to go and move home, or I have to drop something off at the legal office, or just, but there's a way. And that's why I go to companies and I train their staff in how to deal with that, and also how to signpost that member of staff, depending on whether it's abuse they're going through or co-parenting battles, whatever struggles. There's no one size fits all, but I cover that in my training.
Amazing. And based on what you've seen, I'm sure you've seen incredible good examples that probably came after your coaching and training. But before you came into their lives, what are some examples of bad examples of how leaders handle these situations in ways that makes the problem worse or makes it more difficult for the person to even feel comfortable bringing it up again?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I could talk about this all day because it's so precious to my heart, and I'm on a mission to continue to help men and women and organizations. But one client was suffering from a divorce for many years, co-parenting as well, finally plucked up the courage to go and speak to his boss. And the boss, his leader, froze and didn't know what to say, said a few words and mumbled whatever. But then my client went back to silently struggling, kind of showing up at work but not performing correctly because they were suffering so badly at home with the divorce, bringing and trying to raise children as well, and trying to do a high-powered job also. And years later, there's still been no follow-up from that manager to a really important part of this guy's team. So that's quite a bad example. Another example is where a client of mine, she emailed her HR team, and it took 2 weeks for them to get back to her, which is not great at all. I understand people are busy, and another one was where one of my clients went to his boss and said, you know what, I can't do this. I've got so much family upheaval going on at home. My daughter's not very well, etc., etc. And I'm going to have to resign in a few months once we're over the hurdle of getting this thing they were doing, this project they were doing, to the finish line. And not once did his boss say, do you know what? We have policies in place for this. Why don't you call them? So that client of mine, obviously I'm dealing with him now, and he just couldn't believe that what policies he had. He never knew what policies he had at work and was at work for many years. And if I can just briefly talk about policies that work places have. So an EAP policy is an employee assistance program, which workplaces have to help their staff with personal or workplace related struggles or other policies they might have. And with EAPs, I must say, first of all, that data shows us that 3/4 of any workforce suffers personal or relationship issues. So a lot of my clients, as I said, they don't know whether their company has any policies in place. But companies have a duty of care for their staff, as we do as parents, for our family, for our friends. So, for example, the utilization of an EAP is between around 4 and 7%. So if you take a company, for example, of 1,000 employees, and let's say 5% of them are using the EAP, that's 95% of your staff slipping through the cracks, even though the company's paying for it. So that is kind of like a sunk cost, really. And when employees feel genuinely supported, seen and heard, you're going to retain staff. They're going to be more focused. They're going to make better decisions. And in my experience, when and if staff use that EAP, it's often generic counseling. It takes a while to get through to the person that you actually need. And it's not crisis specialist support. And I often say to the companies that I go to, and I say, look, if fewer than 1 in 20 employees are using your EAP policy. That is not
Mm.
support. That is just a tick box, because I know investors and the media, they're always scrutinizing, what companies are doing for their ESG commitments. And they're always wanting to do better and be better and stand out. And when they stand out and they have all these policies, they attract good executives. So all my work is completely discreet and confidential. And I went to a company once and I did my talk and I said, if you, and there were men and women in the audience, Kwame, and I said, if you were suffering at home from abuse from either your wife or your husband, you were going through a terrible acrimonious divorce, co-parenting battles, toxic relationships, intimate partner violence, I said, can you nod, put your hand up, or blink your eyes if you would actually phone up your policy at work and let them know that you're suffering? And do you know what happened? The room fell silent, Kwame. And it was such a light bulb moment for them that once we obviously had refreshments afterwards, they couldn't believe it. And it's kind of after that, I had quite a few people call me professionally for their personal struggles. So it just goes to show that they were suffering. But also it's those light bulb moments that if you're not using your policy, how do you expect your teams or the rest of your employees to use it? This is the thing. And they don't, in my professional opinion and with my work that I do, they don't use it because they're embarrassed. They don't want HR to know. They don't want their managers to know they're weak. So very much kind of reasons, not one size fits all, basically. And there's just stigma about using a policy, a work policy. And that's where I go in and I restructure it and we change it. And that helps towards, and as I always say, a resignation prevented, absenteeism reduced. And, when you genuinely care for your staff, that's a direct return on investment for that company.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. And it shows that a lot of companies have a lot of work to do when it comes to this, because it's not just about having the program. It's about destigmatizing it and encouraging people to use it, because it doesn't really do much if it's there, but it's not used. And for the person themselves who's going through these tough times, whatever it might happen to be, how do they balance internally when they're making the determination of when should I push through and when should I actually honor my feelings and slow down a little bit? Because I think making that determination, especially for people who are very driven, high performers, who have a lot of responsibility, they carry a lot of personal guilt and shame about self-care sometimes. So how do you
Yeah.
balance that?
It's kind of it's again, it's not one size fits all, but it's balancing it in a way that you're open with your staff. You let them know that you're going through struggles and you have that open communication, because when your leader is talking openly about, gosh, really bad night last night or a really bad argument this morning, the team knows that, yes, you're a leader and you're high in your profession, but they're also human as well. And when they're opening up the channels, obviously their team, because he has or she has a duty of care, not only to himself, but the team as well. So even opening up that line of communication, then the staff, his team or her team will then open up as well. And it will become, and again, it comes down to aligning with ESG commitments, is taking care of your staff and letting them know that we understand personal issues are a workplace issue, are a business issue, and a bottom line issue. And we are here to support you.
That makes sense. And for people who are listening to this as leaders and they say, we have a lot of work to do within our company, and now I want to be that advocate for these policies, for this shift. How should they go about having those conversations?
I mean, those conversations, for if they come to me, every company, it's tailored towards the company size, their culture, how many employees, what they're seeing, what patterns they're seeing within their company, what they know they need to do better on, what staff need trained on. But again, it's actually uh, admitting and acknowledging that there is more to do and that you're not fully connecting with your ESG commitments. And I'm not here to criticize anybody's policies. What I'm here to do is highlight that there is a gap between policy, performance, and people, and that I'm here to complement what they have in place already, and enhance the policies that they've already got.
Mm. The Louise, this reminds me, I wanted to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier on in the episode, but I didn't dig into it. But I want to make sure that we touch on this. You talked about how important it is to monitor your thoughts. And you said for every negative thought, I believe you said try to come up with 3 things that you're grateful for. Can you talk a little bit more about why that is so important?
Yes, because again, when you're focusing on the negatives, you forget you've actually got some, well, there's actually a lot in your life that you should be grateful for. But when you're so focused and you're so down and you've hit rock bottom, you can't think straight and you need to get clarity on your emotions. But I always say, try and think of you've got your health. You have a roof over your head. You've got healthy children. You've got money coming in. You have a hot meal. Just those little things that you're grateful for. You're feeding yourself with, yeah, I'm really in a bad place here, but look what I've got. I've got this to be thankful for as well. And you might not see it at the time. And like I said earlier, it takes practice. It takes time to be able to flip from that, negative to these actually positives, and remember as well that it's not permanent. What you're going through is not permanent, and the setback will be your superpower and your strength in the future.
Yes. And what's beautiful about this is that it's not toxic positivity where we are denying the negative. We're acknowledging the negative while at the same time recognizing that there are very legitimate positives. And when it comes to just humanity in general, we have this negativity bias where we are hyper vigilant for negative things and then we will just focus on those things. The thing is, we're training our brain through neuroplasticity to just focus on those negative things. But now we are with intentionality reshaping our minds to start paying attention to those positive things as well. And so that brings more balance. So it's not about denying the reality of the negatives. It's also about recognizing that in focusing on the negatives, we have been denying the very legitimate positives that can
Yeah.
make us feel legitimately better.
Absolutely. And we must remember as well that people have legitimate reasons why they are feeling so bitter and so angry. You know, they could have come out of a toxic relationship. They could have been in an abusive relationship. So they have every right to feel those emotions, but don't unpack and stay there. It's kind of
Yeah.
let's move you forward. And because having that feeling, you have to acknowledge them and you have to move forward, but don't take the baggage with you. Just focus on the positives, focus on what's ahead of you. And even though you can't see it now because you're in that position, I get it. And I'm saying to my clients, I get you. I hear you. I've been through that pain of a divorce and co-parenting and also a toxic relationship. So I understand what they're going through, and I've got the lived experience. I've got the business expertise because I previously had a lucrative company with my ex-husband, and I've got the professional qualifications. So it's not about denying any of your feelings. And I also say to clients who are fearful as well of moving forward, I always say, remember, on the other side of fear is your peace and your happiness.
Hmm.
And it's Mm. Okay, okay. And they like that thought, and that's what keeps them moving as well. It's peaceful. And if you've been in a toxic relationship and or a domestically violent or IPV relationship, peace is what you need. And when you get happiness and peace, that in itself is priceless.
Yes, and I think a lot of times we underestimate the power of just peace,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things. It's kind of like oxygen. You don't recognize how important it is until it's gone, and then when it's gone, it's the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that you want, and driving toward that peace, but also having that belief inside of you that there is peace on the other side of these feelings. I think that's necessary, because if you don't have that belief, then you're going to be filled with these self-limiting beliefs, and then that's going to steer your decision making into validating that negative story, where you're going to only see the negatives. You're going to steer toward them in all of these different types of ways. So we can see how all of this comes together. It's the self-belief, it's recognizing positives, and then also just believing that there's something better on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, with my coaching, it's action led. Like you said, it's fast tracking their emotions. It's seeing what's ahead of them. And it's celebrating the small wins. And remember to pat yourself on the back. If you're on your own and you're raising children, for example, you forget to give yourself a pat on the back. You got your children out at school, you pick them up, their homework is done, they're washed, they're in bed. You're always on the go constantly, but sit back and think, where have I come from? What did I go through to where I am now? And look forward as to where else do I want to go and where else do I want to be? And I think self-compassion as well. Self-compassion is the antidote, for example, to people pleasing, because when you stop outsourcing your approval to others, it's kind of you take back that control again. And when you shift that, when you build up that self-compassion, that shift is so powerful that you start to break the cycle of people pleasing or doing stuff for other people. You have to have your boundaries in place. And for every no that drains you is a much louder yes to yourself. And there has to come a time where you recognize, hold on a second, my needs matter here. And if you don't, you're going to end up resenting that person, and then you'll end up being burnt out if you're in the workplace as well. So taking control of yourself and taking responsibility is just a huge, powerful and empowering moment.
I'm wondering, in your experience, how many of the people that you work with do you realize that a big part of what drives them to be so successful is the people pleasing, validation seeking, outsourcing of approval that just keeps them constantly seeking and driving? So from the outside looking in, it looks like this person's very successful. They have the accolades, they're getting all of that validation, but they're doing it because they can't produce that validation for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And in my line of work as well, I see lots of high achievers and high net worth, and they're actually doing it because they've suppressed their emotions for so long. And so what they do is they work harder, they go to the gym, they work hard, they come back, go to the gym, they get up the next day, they do. So they're kind of doing it as I've got something to prove here. And also, they've suppressed their emotions so much that it comes out and it will hit them like a freight train. And a lot of men and women, actually, they work so hard and they've got a point to prove. And it's, I'm divorced or my partner has left me. And it's like, what do I do now? Oh, okay, let me work. And once they start working and getting the accolades, as you said, and they're starting to do better at work, and they're actually making mistakes. They're actually not focused. So when I talk to them, they're getting these accolades and they think, I'm not even sure how I got that because I didn't meet that deadline. I wasn't really focused. I made that wrong decision. I should have actually have done something.
Before we wrap up, I want to make sure that we give proper focus on the domestic violence statistics because they're pretty significant, and I think that'll help a lot of leaders to recognize just how challenging this can be for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the shocking statistics that I am about to tell you is staggering. And again, 3/4 of your workforce will be going through hidden, silent relationship struggles at any one time. Um, and you won't believe it, but 6 women every hour globally die at the hands of a male family member or an ex or current partner. Shocking.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, geez.
It's unbelievable and it's so concerning. And not only that, 8.3 billion is lost every year due to absenteeism and productivity in the workplace.
Is that statistic specifically domestic violence related or just in general?
That is domestic violence in alone. So if you add in, yeah, it's absolutely shocking. And if you add in the divorce, co-parenting battles, toxic relationships, loss of identity, burnout, you can imagine that figure multiplies massively. And of course, I'm not just talking about money that's lost for businesses, and obviously that is a concern, and that's why I continue to help businesses with that. But also, that's lives that are at risk as well. We're talking about money here, but we're also talking about lives, and that could be a family member, a friend, a colleague. That could be somebody suffering in silence, and you don't know about it. And victims of intimate partner violence lose 8 million days paid work every year, which is equivalent to 32,000 full-time jobs.
Mm. Yeah, and it's so these numbers are staggering, Louise. It's shocking, and I'm thinking it's so important for us to proliferate this message, to send this out so people could recognize just how significant it is. And it might seem at times callous to talk about it in terms of money, but the reality is sometimes, depending on who it is that you're talking about or talking to, that's really the thing that makes them realize that they need to do something. It's sad but true. And for the person who's listening, who's a leader, who's recognizing this and wants to do something about it, we have to recognize that reality that yes, this is simply the right thing to do, but sometimes that is not enough to be persuasive to the person you're talking to. So when you can bring in this data, you can bring in the statistics and tie it very clearly to the bottom line, even though you personally may not feel like you should have to recognize that might be what you need to do to be the catalyst for the change that you want to see in your workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, I am the human eyes and ears behind their policies and their well-being policies. And I represent the voices that they rarely hear, but they can't afford to ignore. And also as well, companies want and need solutions that connect their performance, their retention, and also their ESG reporting. And that's where I come in to help those companies too. And it's the figures continue to rise as well. And when you've got somebody off sick or absent for days or weeks or months, and that's just not time off, that's actually a financial liability. And there was another shocking data that I read that, according to a report, between 2001 and 2012, more women in the US were killed by a partner using a gun than US troops in Iraq and Afghanistan combined.
Mm.
So can you imagine not just intimate partner violence. Can you imagine those people suffering at home and coming into work as well and thinking, this is my safe place here, but being there, but unable to perform how they should, and then having to either go back home to that toxic environment, or it's just, I feel we have to do more. We have to listen. We have to try and do better. And as I said, I'm not here to criticize anybody's policies. I'm just here to highlight the gap and also the need, and to enhance what they've got. And I hear stories day in, day out, and it's what your workforce aren't taking to a hotline, basically. So that's where I come in. And if anybody that is suffering in intimate partner violence or domestic abuse, please know that it is not your fault, that there is help out there. So please don't suffer in silence either. If you don't want to get in touch with me, get in touch with your local police, your local charity, trusted family member, friend, work colleague, but please don't suffer alone. There's many people going through it, and it's a problem shared is a problem half solved.
Right.
It's kind of, to reach out, don't suffer in silence. There's always somebody there that can help you.
Yes, it's so important. It's so important. And I'm recognizing too, you are you're the perfect person to speak out on this, because you work with clients who are going through it, but you also work with organizations too. And the thing that's really interesting is that usually people feel forced to go one way or the other. They are either doing the corporate consulting exclusively, or they're doing the coaching exclusively. But the fact that you do both exceptionally well makes you the perfect person to talk about how to solve this challenge in a holistic type of way.
Yeah, thank you, Kwame. Absolutely. And because I hear it, I mean, I suffered going through my own divorce. I suffered extreme financial and post-separation abuse. So I get it. So I've got the lived experience. I've got the business insight. I talk to companies all the time as well. So I know what is lacking, and I know what needs changed once we start to speak. But no, you have to be there. When somebody comes to you, you have to know how to handle it and be prepared for when and if they come to you.
Yeah, and before we wrap, there's one other thing too. When somebody does come to you with something like this, I think either people freeze. You gave the example of people freezing, but what are some of the well-meaning mistakes that people can make where their heart is in the right place, but the action or the words go in the wrong direction and actually make things worse?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not that they don't care. When staff goes to a leader, a manager, a HR director, or whatever, it's not that they don't care. It's just that they're unprepared. And for the words, for example, as I just said, if somebody is being abused at home, man or woman, because abuse doesn't discriminate. It can have men and women. But if you've got someone coming to you, the first thing I always say is to when I train companies is, it's not your fault. I see you, I hear you, and I will support you. It's having that compassion, that to let them know that thank you for sharing that. It must have taken so much for you to come here. I've got your back. What do you need? What do you want me to do? How can I help you? What should we do? How can we support you? And just give them that room to speak, and also that room to say, actually, if I could have a morning off next week, that would be really great for me. Just those little things like that.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And I think the thing that's most encouraging about that is that it's not some kind of complex procedure. Yeah. It's something that is very doable.
Yeah. When I go and I train companies, I always ensure that wherever they are in the world, that they have a list of where to signpost that person, man or woman, to signpost them to the local police station, to the local domestic abuse charity, or their local hospital, or whatever charitable organization is there, or a trusted family member, but also in companies. I always say to them, you need a trusted specialist where they can come to and not have to go through HR or their manager. It's kind of discreet and confidential, and it kind of sidetracks so they're not embarrassed. And when companies have that in place, their employees engage more because they know that the person, the specialist support that they have, has gone through what they're going through, that knows the pain that they're going through, that has the tools and techniques to move them forward positively. So there's a lot to be said for having that kind of part that's kind of separate from the workplace. And then the workplace will always have an anonymized report as to divorce or co-parenting battles or
Mm.
domestic abuse. Then they'll know what their staff are going through. And then again, we can address that and let's put this in place. Let's put that in place.
That's brilliant, because now you actually have some real data and numbers
Yeah.
to guide the decision making.
Yeah, because I know EAPs at the moment, it's not like a line item. So companies don't know. And I mean, as I said, utilization is low anyway at 5%, but companies don't know what their staff are actually calling an EAP for. So there's no track. There's no, well, we can't sort that because we don't actually know what they're dealing with. And as I said, it's only 5% using it. So if 5% are using it, you're not really genuinely taking care of your staff.
Right. This is great. Louise, I could talk to you about this forever, but I want to make sure that we bring Simone in, because he's been listening, and I know he has at least one question, maybe more. Simone, what's coming to mind for you?
The first question is very personal, because at the end of the episode, I heard that you said that you suffered from post-separation abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you're part of the statistics too. But behind every statistics, every number is a person, is a story, is life. So how was it for you, and how did you overcome it?
For me, how did I overcome it? Again, I was bearing in mind that I kind of had everything. We designed and built our home. We had fabulous holidays. We had luxury cars. We had a comfortable lifestyle. But when we separated, I was a 50% shareholder and a company secretary, and my ex-husband, he was a 50% shareholder and a director. He reduced my salary. He stopped my perks. He stopped me from using the luxury cars. He gave me the old car. So I was in the cycle of financial abuse. Even though I was a shareholder, I couldn't access money that belonged to me. So when I moved out the family home, because my solicitor said, for your safety, I would prefer you to move out. So I did. So I had to go to the government to get state benefits. And this was me. I was in my 40s at this stage. I'd been married for 16 years and, as you know, 3 children. So I was completely humiliated. So I went and had to rely on state benefits to top up my reduced salary. And I remember well before COVID, I was... Oh, this puts a lump in my throat. I was having to live off donations from food banks. I was also under the care and attention of Women's Aid, which is a domestic abuse charity here in the UK. And I thought, I have no need to be living like this, because even though the full control and pressure he was putting on me, it affected our children. So as a parent, you want to protect your children, feed them, put heating on and do all of that. And I couldn't do that. I could, but he was just withholding that money. He had everything, and the family home, he was running the business. So I thought, right, okay, I just literally couldn't sleep, and I suffered physically, mentally, went to the doctors. And a pivotal moment for me, Simone, was I put my daughter to bed one night, and I hope I'm not going to get tearful. So I put her to bed. You put your children to bed, you give them a kiss, you have a chat, and she said, "Mummy, I'm hungry." And I thought, oh gosh. So she was crying, I was crying, and that for me was my rock bottom, and that for me was my pivotal moment. And I thought, right, I have to fight for this, because if I don't fight, I'm going to suffer and I'm going to end up with nothing. And I will always be this way. So obviously I then fought for what was legally mine. It wasn't as if I was asking for anything different. We had a 16-year marriage. We had a lucrative business that still continues to thrive. So because I had no money, I had to litigate in the employment courts myself. I won my case, but still it's bittersweet. I litigated in the family court as well. And even though I felt very proud of myself, and he was there with his legal team, I thought, not even half an hour later, I thought, why am I having to fight this? I don't need to. And there was about 18 months, and I literally had, I had no money, no salary, no spousal maintenance, and no child support. So I then literally had to live from the benefits, and it was hand to mouth. It was destitute. And I thought, I will never, ever be in this position again. I will never have a man control that of me again. So that was my moment, Simone. And I kind of thought, you know what? And again, going back to your thoughts in your head, I thought, he's taken everything, he's done this, he's done that. But I also thought, we don't have money, but we have lots of love, lots of laughter. And as I also say to my clients as well, you've got a heart of gold. You have a lot of love to still give. So no matter how much somebody tries to strip you of that, remember, you've got those qualities about you, and never forget that. So that was the point. And that's kind of why I then turned my pain into power and progress and positivity. And now I help men and women and organizations through these silent struggles that go on day in, day out. And that's my mission, to continue doing what I love. And this is the thing, it was a huge setback for me, because I'd never not had money in my life, because I'd worked since I was 13. So having no money, it can ruin you, but it spurred me on after that pivotal moment with my daughter hungry. It spurred me on, and now I have a great business. I help people. And yeah, the setback is my superpower.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this. This is
You're welcome.
it's so powerful, and the thing is, you really are the exemplar for what you help your clients achieve. And going back to that night where you said, I'll never find myself in this position again, you went far beyond that goal, where now you are self-sufficient, you're powerful, you're standing in your own strength, but now you've gone far beyond it, and you're helping all of these people all over the world to do the same thing. And it's incredible. Now this gives a brand new context to everything else that you said. You really believe this because you have lived it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I know the pain that they go through, and the tears, and the not eating, not sleeping, the worry, the concern, just not being able to function. And I get it. And the amount of times that I was on the phone to my friends morning, noon, and night crying, we would be out for a walk. They would take me out for coffee or lunch. And then something would trigger me, and I would cry. And, and I'm so thankful and eternally grateful to those friends who are still in my life now, that got me through such a difficult time. And that's years ago now. But, with all of that said, I've accepted what's happened, and I'm happy for my ex-husband, and he's remarried and had children, and I'm happy for him. There's no bitterness there anymore. I've accepted it and I've moved on. And that's where I also help my clients is don't take that bitterness with you into the future.
Hold on a second. Every time I try to end this episode, you say something brilliant, because I think that a lot of times the people let the bitterness turn them into, a lesser version of Batman, where they're just fueled by vengeance to do something, right? And it's in a lot of times you hold on to that resentment and that bitterness because you almost feel obligated to. So why is it so important to let that go?
Oh gosh. Well, I always think, especially if you have children together, at some point in time, you're going to have engagement parties, christenings, weddings. It's important for you to let that go, the anger. And I get it. You can be angry. You can be sad. You can be tearful. You might want revenge, but just remember, in the future, you have to not only look at your children, but also look at that person in the face and maybe sit at the same table as them. And again, this is, it takes time to get to that acceptance part. But I always say to my clients, think, don't act in haste. Because you will, in the future, you might not think it now because your children are small, but in the future, your children will know that you did this or did that. So,
You're playing chess out here. That makes sense. That makes sense. And honestly, I think that that answer is a lot more palatable and than the moralized answer. It is the right thing to do to let go. If people have different belief systems or no belief system at all, they're like, it doesn't feel right. So
it doesn't feel right. Yeah.
But right now you've laid out exactly why it is strategically beneficial to you to let go of it. And I can definitely respect that. It makes so much sense. It's kind of like when they say with resentment, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. You're just making yourself feel bad. And really, it doesn't necessarily need to be forgiveness in the sense of we are saying it is okay what you did or something to that effect. It's letting go. Letting go is a gift that you give yourself that allows you to move forward, which is a quintessential element of everything that we've been talking about. Because if you're holding on to that bitterness and resentment, we have to recognize that it takes emotional energy to hold on in that way. And that's emotional energy that we could allocate more effectively to something so much better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where with my clients, we let go of that, and we let go of it over the course of time, 3 to 5 sessions. But it's if you're holding on to that anger and that negativity, and when you're looking to go into your next relationship, if you haven't healed properly or taken the time to go inwards and reflect on what happened, what you need to do in future relationships, where your boundaries are. Do you have the courage to speak up in future and ensure that nobody oversteps your boundaries? It's all about building up to and getting your resilience in check as well, because confidence comes after action, and you have to know deep down that you're ready for the next relationship, but that you've healed and you've got over the past. Otherwise, you're just taking that baggage into the next relationship.
Right.
And all of those insecurities and everything that happened then will happen now. So it's important to grieve, but also to grow as well at the same time.
So good. Simone, okay, you're asking brilliant questions now. Ask the second one. We need to know that. I want to hear that one too.
I had a friend that went through that moment.
Oh, sorry.
But I didn't know how to support, because we are not professionals, and we can't just say, okay, go to a professional. We need to have some words. And when we support, we don't know if we're triggering even more, or maybe let's say, for instance, she said in her workplace, she said, I need 1 month off. And the boss said, yeah, that's fine. But how do we know if that's fine? Because maybe she needs to work. Maybe she needs to be with her teammates. And if she's alone at home, or maybe talking to a friend about that relationship, that's even worse. So what's the best way to support?
Okay, well, thank you. That's a great question. And firstly, you're right. When they're at home, and the more they talk about what's bothering them, whether it's an intimate partner violence or domestic abuse or toxic relationship or whatever, the more they talk about it, they're keeping that story alive. So if you were with your friend and, you basically just say to her, what do you need from me? And you open the floor for her to then say, actually, I'd like you to check in on me. I'd like to go for coffee every day at, say, 10 o'clock. How can I help you? I understand that you're suffering and I'm sorry for that, but I am here and I want you to call me morning, noon and night. Just know that I am here for you. And if you could have said to her, if I call you too much or if I message you too much, please let me know and let's keep this open. And that you will lead by what she allows, basically. But also, if it's domestic abuse, again, always tell them it is not your fault. Because in domestic abuse, intimate partner violence situations, you will always find that the perpetrator, whether that be a man or woman, they will always gaslight that person into believing they're the crazy one. So it's kind of letting them know that I hear you, I support you, what can I do? But if you are out with your friend, let her talk about it. But if you're out with her again, do not bring up the negativity, because the more she keeps talking about it, the more she's annoying herself. She's getting angry. So she's not getting over it. So try and change the subject, but let her know that you're not doing it because you don't want to hear. You just let her know that you've heard it, but you're there to help her now to get through the other side.
Oh, that's so good. So good.
Yeah. And I also, as well, with that, also have a good support network around you or your friend, whether that be friends, family, a gym buddy, a coach, whether you're going through a divorce, a good divorce lawyer, good financial consultant, whoever, have that support mechanism in place for people. Because when they're supported, they'll get through it. They know that everybody is in their corner.
Wow. Just dropping gems. Like that's sometimes people speak in gems. You just breathe in them. Like, this is just how I exhale.
Thank you.
That's really good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yes. And so before you go, let listeners know how best to connect with you and work with you.
Of course. Well, they can connect with me via LinkedIn. I'm on Louize Coaching, and that's Louise with a Z, Louize Coaching. Or I'm on Instagram at Louize Coaching, or LinkedIn, or my website is www.louizecoaching.co.uk. And please feel free to reach out. And if you don't want to reach out to me and you are suffering, please speak to a trusted family member, a friend, a colleague, your local police, or whatever charity in your area. Please don't suffer alone. That's what I would like to say to listeners who are listening in. Yeah.
Louize, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you so much, Kwame and Simone as well. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.